So howdy. Tom asked us here today to talk to y'all a little bit about the almost 50 years of history in the family business of AR photography. I will cry. Sorry guys, I'm a crier. And with my brother sitting over here, it's not going to make it any easier. But I guess I should start at the beginning. Our family moved here in 1974. My father was at the end of his almost 29-year career as a United States Marine. Texas A&M was and the Corps of Cadets would be his last official assignment as an active duty Marine, but not his last job, thank goodness. He was the first executive officer of the Navy Marine Corps here, and they loved it here and decided to stay, and that's what's happened. We've been here ever since, so 50 years. John and I actually live in the same house that I grew up in, and as of right now, I can never imagine leaving Aggieland. It's definitely... It's home. Dad had many jobs while he worked at A&M. He taught some military history type classes to the cadets and was in charge of many special units during his time at A&M. He was the military advisor. A good old story was the time that one of his good friends, a Marine, had a son here at A&M, and the son just could not make his grades. Dad had to call him into his office many times, and it just wasn't working. The getting on him and all of that just wasn't working. So his last-ditch effort, the kid came in, Dad had a big dip of snuff in his mouth, and he was, kind of getting on the kid and swallowing his dip of snuff, and gets to the end of the talk with the young man, and Dad said, "I've got another meeting," so he just swallows all the dip of snuff in his mouth, picks up the bottle of Windex off his desk, shoots it in his mouth, gargles a minute, swallows it. The kid walks out and made his grades. What the kid didn't know was that it was cut up Tootsie Rolls. My dad was not a dipper. And blue food coloring in water in a Windex bottle. But it worked, did the trick. Anyway, so he was the military advisor to the Fightin' Texas Aggie Band, the Ross Volunteer Company, the Navy Marine units on the quad, and he had to keep his golf game sharp for retirement. So many different hats. While Dad had all these jobs, Mom had many too. Not only did Mom have 4 girls at home to raise, but she also worried a lot about her son that stayed in Alabama when we moved here and continued his education at Auburn before he joined the Marine Corps. Yeah, watch it, Scott. Anyway, Mom was very active in the Officers' Wives Club and with her many hobbies, but other than her 5 kids, she was an amazing help with the cadets at A&M. They opened their home, our home, to countless cadets for fun, fellowship, and hot meal or two, to spend time with family like they missed from being at home. They would open their house to any cadet on game day weekends. There were CTs and BQs. It didn't matter at the Hickle house, you were all one. So there was no fighting like on the quad back then. Even Reveille 4 was there to eat chili from her bowl and then chase us over the couches, back and forth, back and forth. She was a lot of fun. He graduated with his master's and officially earned his Aggie ring in 1976, and then he retired from the Marine Corps in 77. A lot of cadets marched to our house on his last day to wake Mom and Dad up singing The Spirit of Aggieland. I'm so sorry. 6 pages. There's going to be a lot of crying. Anyway, they woke him up singing The Spirit of Aggieland, just to let him know how much that they meant to them. Daddy wasn't finished and needed a new career. He figured out quickly that it wasn't going to be on the tour as a professional golfer, so he went with his next love, his love of photography. He opened a studio at the house in 1977 and named it Aggie Art Studio. He was kind of a male chauvinist. Not really any woman here that knew him. He was not, but set off later he renamed it AR Photography and opened the first official location in Bryan on 29th Street. AR Photography was a one-stop shop. Dad shot weddings, family portraits, he did headshots. He might occasionally ask a young lady if her bra strap fell off the side to retrieve her bra strap so it wasn't in the picture. Thank you, Sharon, for always remembering that story. He shot many of the Little League sports, not just in Bryan College Station, but in other surrounding counties. He shot the Burleson County Fair for a few years, and he did product photography. He shot houses, and he shot farm and ranch land for buyers and sellers. I say shot a lot, and we all know that it's a photography studio, so we mean I'm taking pictures, right? He shot kids, and he would go on the plane and shoot aerial photographs. He shot many dances, proms, victory dances, homecoming dances. He shot the Bryan High School yearbook and senior portraits for many years. On campus, he shot ag orgs, which were like the singing cadets or century singers, those type of things. He also shot the dorm pictures and hometown clubs for many years. But it was the Corps that he loved the most. He shot the march-ins until the mid-'80s. He shot all of the Aggie outfit pictures in the same military style as Aggieland Studios that retired when Dad started. He started shooting class poses that they had never done before, so each class got to have a picture. There were dances, which is where all 4 girls got their start at the studio, and boyfriends. Sorry, John. We took the tickets, we took the money, we posed the people, the boyfriends hold all of the things, all that fun stuff. We shot ring dance, class balls, military ball, combat bash. There was BQ ball and boot dance. But the dance that we've shot every year, with the exception of 2020 and that darned COVID, since 1977 was RV ball. So this next one will be our 47th RV ball. That's a pretty good streak, I think. We've shot every Marine Corps commissioning. So every time a Navy or Marine cadet commissions into the Marine Corps here, they have a family ceremony. We've shot every one of those for the 47 years. That's 141 commissionings. That's a lot of cadets. That even means that the current Corps Commandant, not Corps Commandant, the current Commandant of the Marine Corps, Eric Smith, class of '87, who was a BQ, was shot by my daddy. He shot more senior boots than I can count in his 20 years as a photographer, and actually shot more than one father and son duo. I'll never forget the time I saw him run. I didn't see my dad run much. I got him at the older years, right? I'm one of the younger two. You got him younger in life, where he was much more active. So I see him running down the stairs at our studio. This studio was located in 707 over where On the Border is now. He was running down the stair. I said, "Daddy, what's wrong?" And he said, "Oh my God, it's finally happened." And I said, "What?" And he said, "I'm shooting a son whose father I shot." And right then I realized the impact of everything should be the same. So the same picture that Daddy shot, I'm sorry, I call him Daddy a lot. The same picture that he shot, I shoot today. And actually, the curtains, the rug, the flags, all of that are from 1977. So they're a little dusty, but the dust keeps them together, I promise. We opened AR Photography 2 in 1985 on University Drive to accommodate for the distance to campus in the contract for the Aggieland. Incidentally, in 30 years of Aggieland headshots, that means I personally have shot more than 75,000 headshots of cadet and non-regs. And if you even want to do math even more than that, that's at 4 pictures a kid, that's more than 300,000 images. I think my trigger finger's a little tired. I started my apprenticeship as a photographer in 1986 at the beginning of my senior year in Bryan High, and continued while earning my associate's degree at Blinn. And then I got the call. I was needed full-time as the photographer behind the man in 1989, and I've never looked back. From 77 to 89, we had many photographers that worked for Dad. Some of them took what they learned and started successful businesses of their own here in town. There was Bill Crawford with CNC Photographics, if you guys remember that, and Pam Stahl. She was also a photographer here. And the photographers back in those days worked like a family and helped each other out when needed. Oh, well, it might come up. Daddy started to slow down or actually take more time off for golf in 1994, and then officially handed Mom and I the reins in 97. In his time, he shot many weddings, newborns, and he actually was asked to deliver a few eulogies for former cadets. He bought tires, mentored Aggies, and he and Mom opened their doors and hearts and poured love into so many Aggies until they passed away in 2011, 2014, respectively. All the while teaching me the same code. It's never just business. It's always family.
Take a breath.
It's always family, no matter who they are or where they came from. Everyone deserves a warm heart, a good photograph, an open door, a big hug, which I do a lot, and a good home-cooked meal. Thank God I married John. Nobody will disagree on that one. AR Photography's had multiple locations in 47 years, from the house in Bryan to 29th Street. There were 2 locations on Texas Avenue, 707 and Redmond Terrace, with the best neighbor ever. We were on Welborn Road and in 2 locations on University and 404 and inside Specialties Photography. We also moved with Specialties to Coppercrest, and then now officially at home again, where it all started. God, John, that's a whole lot of moving stuff. I am so sorry. We're not done yet, babe.
Just had surgery.
Yeah.
Go for a while.
As you can probably tell, I use daddy more than dad, and I am a daddy's girl. Mom and I were best friends. We ate lunch every day together, played dominoes all the time. Restaurants actually changed out their light bulbs or moved people, set them around in other places so we wouldn't disturb them playing our dominoes. We had to do something to pass our time, right? I never wanted to upset Dad. He was larger than life, right? Like most girls think of their fathers, hopefully. I took him to show and tell when I was younger and introduced him as, this is my daddy, an ex-Marine. And I quickly learned what Scott had to deal with growing up, as he called me on the carpet and let me know that there's never an ex-Marine, there's always a former Marine. So I learned that really quickly. Apparently, I was a little hard-headed because in 18, when I started shooting outfit pictures with him, he was standing over my shoulder. There's an outfit of 100 cadets my age and a little bit older standing there, and it's my first day. And I don't know how to load film, but I know how to take the pictures. So I'm sitting there, and I start to take a picture, and he's standing over me, and I said, "Daddy," real sternly, "Daddy, leave me alone." And he looked at me, and in front of all those cadets said, "That's Colonel Hickel to you." And he turned around and walked off. And the rest of the day, he was Colonel Hickel. So, learned that really quickly. Anyway, in all of this time, we have shot all of the core pictures. We've taken, like I said, weddings and so forth. There's lots of stuff up here to see, nothing like what we really have. As a matter of fact, John we live in the house that I grew up in. All of the closets are filled with negatives. We didn't go digital, we went kicking and screaming in 2014. So from 77 to 2014, we have all of the core negatives and many family shots or anything that we have there. Today, we have 2 cadets that live with us. Well, they're former cadets, but they live with us. It's still an open door policy. More people have our garage code than don't. We never know who's gonna show up or when. The door just opens, and John and I look each other over the news. Did you invite somebody today? Anyway, that's basically it. Is it time for the?
Are you going to get the freshman talk?
No, it's on there.
Okay.
Is it time for that?
Yes.
Okay.
I think we've got it now.
More than 70,000 young people who are seeking their degrees, and so many who've gone before them, they all share a deep-seated sense of tradition and reverence for this sacred soil called Texas A&M.
If I'm telling you to do something and they're yelling at you to do something else, it behooves you to listen to me because that's going to get us out of here much faster, right? I didn't do it traditionally. I didn't go to school to be a photographer. If I ever see anything wrong today, tomorrow, in 3 weeks or 3 years, I'm going to walk up to square you away. I grew up knowing it, and it worked. It clicked.
Jennifer Hickle Carpenter has lost count of how many times she's corralled a group of A&M Corps of Cadets members just for a photograph.
Y'all make sure if you've got anything in your front pockets, you take it out and put it in your back pocket for me if you can.
Working with her husband, John, it's up to them to make sure every tiny detail, from the uniform to the mascot, is perfect. Jennifer is familiar with tradition. Her dad barked these same orders at this same spot for decades.
He started the photography studio in '77. He named it AR Photography, and it's been going since '77. He did all kinds of photography always, but the core was his love. So we shot anything from dances to engagements, weddings, the yearbook. It's the biggest yearbook in the nation, I think, still. And so he did all the headshots for the Aggieland and pictures in there. Okay, everybody looking straight ahead down the street, no smiling. I started in '82, but in '86, '87, my senior year in high school is when I became a full-time employee. They needed me, and so he was getting ready to retire, and I stepped up and said, I'll do it. And so here we are 37 years later, and I'm still doing it.
How did you fit into all of this in the beginning?
Mostly hauling things, hauling negatives, hauling camera equipment. I'm more the sidekick, and I'm fine with that. She's the special one. The kids love her, so we have just kind of become a team.
All right, so Dang, I want you to go this way. You know, there's 2,100 kids in the Corps. I shoot at least 4 to 5 headshots of each kid. And then there's 41 outfits in the Corps this year, and we shoot 10 to 12 pictures at Outfit Pictures. And then, you know, you add in the dances and so forth. I'm taking tens of thousands of pictures each year that I have to then go back and work on.
Do you think about your dad?
Every day. And my mother. They worked side by side for all those years, and I think about him every day. How would Dad have done this? Would he have done this way? How would he handle this situation? Where's your saber? Go ahead and grab your saber. Sanders Corps of Cadets Center, and it's a museum that is on campus. They have a library, which I have kind of taken over the library for a couple of years now to shoot their pictures. It's across the street from where they live, so it's easy for them to just pick up their uniform and come over and have their pictures taken. Lean that saber back, nice glare on the saber.
Will Whitaker is here for his boot sitting, a privilege shared only by seniors. And like her dad before her, Jenn is a stickler for details.
Just stay like that, perfect. Boot sittings were a thing back in the day, so the boot sitting from '77 is the same boot sitting you're going to get today. So if my dad shot your dad and now I'm shooting you, it's same carpet, same drapes, same furniture, same flags from 1977.
The seniors are the only ones that get to wear senior boots. It is the culmination of their college career in one photo.
There you go. Yeah, that one's going to look just like your dad. Perfect.
Occasionally somebody will call in and say, hey, listen, I'd really like a picture of me and my father together in the same photo. And so I take the photos and I put them together. And it really is neat how they look alike. They're in the same uniform. These are the Lovitts. This is the father, this is the son, and I believe he was graduated in the 80s. His son, Scott, graduated 19, I believe. So we put them in the same picture together, but there's 30 plus years of difference between the photos. They look exactly like they were there taken at the same time. It's the same age, but 30 years apart.
Her dad took these pictures of your dad.
It's cool to see that, you know, her dad took pictures of my dad, and now she's taking pictures of me, and every time we get together we take a picture and send it to my parents. It's pretty cool.
I think your mom's going to be really happy about these. Thank you for coming in.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right.
Thanks for taking my photo.
Oh, you're welcome, sweetheart. All right. You be good. Have a great day.
I will. I'll do my best.
We are as Aggie can be. I think it's the tradition, the respect.
I wear my dad's Aggie ring. He left it to me sorry. When he passed away, he left that to me, and it's just been that way ever since I was a kid. He worked hard to get it, right? And I realized how hard these kids work to get this. This ring of gold is very important. It's a connection to every Aggie, past and present. So we're gonna put Reveille right here. They are the backbone of the traditions of A&M. When you go to attention, split the difference. Don't go all to one side.
For the cadets at Texas A&M, their 4 years here are driven by an intense dedication to tradition. It's what Jennifer Carpenter's dad worked so hard to preserve many years ago. And now this lady with a camera has become a huge part of the core experience, images and memories that will last forever.
Hopefully they feel as attached to John and I as we feel attached to them.
We want to thank you for traveling along with us. I'm Kelly Phillips.
And I'm Bob Phillips, and this is Texas Country Reporter.
All right. Before I get AC up here, I want to see if there's any questions for Jennifer or John, or son of Mr. Hickle. A couple of things that I didn't mention. I first met Art playing golf with him over at Briarcrest. He was there, and I played several rounds of golf with him. Learned a lot of new words. But I mean, he was a hell of a guy. He really was. Back in 1999, when I was working I was at the radio station at WTAW. I started a daily program called Bravo Brazos Valley. It was on the radio. And on Thursdays, I would always feature a veteran. And I started that in 1999. And the very first veteran that I featured on that radio program was Art Hickle. And I went over to Redmond Terrace and we did a little interview, and we did it on the radio. And I found out so many things about him then that I didn't learn. I just had known him as just a really average golfer. And, but I learned about his service like this. When he retired from the Marine Corps, he held the record for the most carrier landings by a Marine pilot. I learned that about him. And that was pretty amazing, because there's a lot of Marine pilots. And, you know, serving in Vietnam as he held the record for the most carrier landings by a Marine pilot. So that was just one part of his service. But he was just a really cool guy. I didn't know your mom. I met her on a couple of occasions, but I definitely knew your dad. Any questions for Art or Jennifer? Hold on, because this is all going to be on Channel 19, so I need to come out there and get you on mic. And here we go. Yes, sir.
You said you switched over to digital about 2014, was that correct?
Yes, sir.
Why did you take so long, and which do you prefer, film or digital?
Well, I'm old school. I prefer film. Film it's just better. I can hold it in my hands. I can look at it. I can print it backwards, which happened many times, right? Digital is much easier. It's much more efficient. It's less expensive as a business owner. But I held off because I learned on the camera with film, and I just enjoyed that a lot better. It's made life a lot easier for John with the digital. Those are much easier to carry.
Any other questions?
Maybe I did my job.
Yeah?
I am a little remiss in explaining John, right?
Explaining John or talking?
I can't really explain him.
We end at one, you know?
That's true. Any therapists out here? No, but I did, or Tom actually told you that, yes, sorry.
Yeah.
Tom actually told you that, that he came into my life because of graphics and all of that. We actually met at speed date, and both chose each other, and we've been together ever since 2003. But he shoots pictures. He graphically creates the pictures that he talked about in there, where he puts the family members together in a picture. If my brother has his eyes closed, which happens a lot, he can take my brother's head out and put a different one in, right? So whoever we want, however we want it to look, right? So I'm kind of remiss in acknowledging your part in the studio.
I'm just a sidekick.
Yeah, keep saying, I need shirts, that he's just the sidekick. Anyway, I just wanted to say that because I did not give him any credit.
Oh, well.
Usually it's the man
Yeah.
doing that to the wife, right?
Hey, Scott, come on up and talk about your dad. Scott Hickle, this
Thank
is
you, Jennifer. Thank you, John.
Jennifer's
Thank you, Tom.
brother and our son.
Yeah, Scott Hickle, and proud to be my dad's son. And my mom had 5 children. I'm the oldest by far, and I was blessed with 4 wonderful sisters. And Jennifer's my 3rd sister, and I remember when they brought her home from the hospital. It was 1968. Dad was a test pilot in those days between tours in Vietnam. And he was a test pilot at VX-5 in China Lake, California. So Jennifer was born actually in California. She's a California girl. And then she kind of alluded to the fact that I was in Alabama. Well, I went to Auburn. Funny story, I was already in college when Dad got orders. Dad was finishing up his bachelor degree at Auburn in aviation management in 1973. I was a freshman in 72, so I was given the choice, come with the family, go to A&M, join the Corps of Cadets, and you'll be happy for the rest of your life. I had long hair, I was a hippie. I said, no way, Jose, I'm in a fraternity at Auburn. Anyway, to make a long story short, 4 years later, I had my hair cut. I came right over here. Dad was the Marine that commissioned me in the Marine Corps. And after my career in the Marine Corps, I moved back here to Texas and met my wonderful wife, Sharon. And about my dad, I just don't know how to even put it into words without breaking into tears. But I'll tell you this, as a 5-year-old, I can remember he was my hero and always was my hero. I mean, we're growing up in the 50s and the early 60s, and we've got the space program, and there's my dad flying supersonic jets. He was the first Marine to drop live ordnance over North Vietnam in '65 off the aircraft carrier Shangri-La. And then he was actually the commander of VMA 311 in '69 and '70, which was the squadron that Ted Williams, if you remember the old baseball player, he was a Marine pilot in Korea, and he was in that very same squadron. So when I got out of the Marine Corps, came here and moved to Texas, I was so blessed because I got to be with my dad every day and my mom just about every day when I wasn't working. When I was working, I was the prototypical traveling salesman, and so I was all over the state of Texas and beyond. And I'll tell you what, it was uncanny. Every time I would see somebody that asked me, "Are you from College Station?" They would say, "Are you an Aggie?" I said, "No, sir." And I said, but my dad is an Aggie, class of '76, and my sister shoots pictures. "Oh, what's your name?" "Hickle." "Oh, they all know Jennifer." Everybody around the state, I don't care, I can meet a stranger and they know Jennifer or my dad. So it was quite a tribute. And I cannot thank you guys enough for sticking it out and keeping the business going, and you're just a remarkable story, I think. And so thank you. It's no better, no worse than anybody else. It's just our story, so we're really happy to be a part of it.
Now, you all have a sister, Amy?
Amy, yeah.
Who is married to Bob Ballard.
That's
the
correct.
Former head football coach at Bryan High, and whose dad was Emory Ballard.
That's correct.
Right, so that's how that
Yeah, they're in
connection
Galveston,
happens.
and Bob still coaches football, and Amy still is the coaches football coach's wife, and they're pretty happy. And then we have another sister, Sarah, and then a sister, Kathy, that lives here in town. So,
Right.
thank you,
Very
Tom.
good.
Thank you for hosting us. Thank you guys for being here today. This was great.
Yeah. When AC's going to make his way up here, because this is the part 2. All right.
Howdy.
I'll go over.
I originally
I'll get
came,
away from that mic. There
I
you go.
originally came here in 1956. Air Force transferred me in. I went to church in Bryan. I met my wife in Bryan. We got married in 57. I helped close out the air base. And then I left for 3 years to Sherman, Texas, came back, and I started barbering at Townshire Barber Shop for the Molitor brothers. And I wanted to ask, how many of you was here before 1963? Okay.
If you're able to stay
I'm going to give you a little history today, because to tell the story of Redmond Terrace without talking about A&M or what conditions existed prior to that. But in 1963, General Rudder, or President Rudder, said he was going to make A&M grow. He was going to have the students vote on voluntary corps, girls, and name change. Instead of being Texas Agricultural Mechanical College, it would be Texas A&M. And the students voted for that. I had, at Townshire, I've become to realize how many people that we were barbering on from College Station, fathers and sons and core staff, seniors, juniors and seniors, because back in that day and time at the MSC, there was a barber shop. Southside, there was a barber shop, and there was 4 North campus at Northgate. They specialized in fish flat tops. I don't know if you know what a fish flat top was. It was skinned on the side, skinned on the top and on the back, and you just had a little bit of hair right around here. Really, it was questionable whether it was a flat top. But the seniors and the upperclassmen didn't want to go into the shops around the campus, because if you were a sophomore, you was able to have your hair just a little bit longer, juniors a little bit longer, and then the seniors. And so if you got in there, and they may forget that you weren't a freshman and mess you up and you're standing in the corps. But there was 6 shops. And as in 1963, Rudder said he was going to make these changes and A&M's going to grow. And I began to look around, and Dr. Redmond, Harold Redmond, was a vet professor at A&M, but his wife and he had a real estate office at Eastgate and an insurance office. And he announced in 1963 he was going to build a shopping center. Now, at that time, there was 3 little communities in College Station: Northgate, Eastgate, and Southgate. They each had 2 councilmen that represented their little area. There was a mayor elected at large. And there was no real place to buy family business except for Pruitt's Fabric Shop. At the end of World War II, when he came back, his wife was a beautician. He wanted to put in a beauty shop, a fabric shop, and a dress shop for women. People in Bryan told him, you can't do business out there in College Station. It's all students. But he insisted, and he wound up putting Pruitt's Fabric and Beauty Shop in at Southside. His brother-in-law put in Park Cleaners, and that was the first business that I can recall that was basically catered to somebody other than students. But I went out and talked to Dr. Redmond about the possibility of putting a barber shop in Redmond Terrace Center. And he agreed, and we negotiated on it. And anyway, it was supposed to be opened in December of '64. Well, Culpeper was developing areas north of the campus along College Avenue. That was a growth. College Hills was growing, and Southside, Bill Fitch, took Rudder at his word and began to buy land and options on land and come south. The purchasing power in College Station just kept growing. but there was really no businesses out here to take care of the families. If you wanted to shop, you went into Bryan. Believe it or not, Bryan ended at Coulter. How many of you know where Coulter is? Okay, that was the city limits. A&M Consolidated went all the way up to Coulter. My wife was born in Bryan, but she lived on 29th Street, which was halfway between what is now the TV station and Bryan High School. That was a country road of gravel. She lived in the only house out there for 6 years before her sister was born. And she said that was the most miserable time of her life because there was nobody to play with. But anyway, as Bryan began to annex, as the purchasing power increased out here, Bryan kept annexing. They built Ridgecrest. Well, then across from Ridgecrest came Orr's Grocery Store and Wynn's Grocery Store, and other businesses began. Bryan at that time only had a city school. They were not like out here where we were consolidated, and every time Bryan would annex part of Consolidated, we had a county school board would transfer the property into Bryan. And slowly, all of that area became Bryan, and then Bryan School District became independent. But anyway, we got to the point where after, I think it was after that came on, that we had people, Bryan became integrated, I'll put it that way. Our high school, our black school burned down here, Lincoln School, and then we integrated. And then there was a few people that had land over on the other side of the railroad track, wanted their kids to go to Crockett School, so they transferred into Bryan School District. Then when Bryan got under court order to bus, those same people wanted to transfer back into Consolidated. I went to our school board member and told him, now look, if you transfer any property between the two school districts, I'm requesting that you get the approval of both boards before you do it. If you don't, we're going to tar and feather you and run you out of town. They did not move any property between the school districts, but the next election we voted them out of condition and it froze the boundaries where it was. But in 1964, the shopping center was supposed to be completed in June. And I had told the guys I worked for that I wanted to work till the 1st of June. Well, my replacement was to arrive on the 15th of June, so they let me work until June 15th. The shopping center was not complete until September. So I spent 2.5 months kind of supervising construction, making sure the shopping that I was going to put in everything was right. And I opened up on the 31st of July, the 31st of August in 1964. Now, if I make a mistake, you understand this, I'm at the age where, you go in the other room and you forget what you went in there for. That's not a problem anymore. I forget before I get in there, so forgive me if I misstate sometimes. But anyway, I got open, and then slowly other businesses began to open. There was, let me see some of them. Pardon? Well, that I'll get into in a little bit. But when I was working at Townshire, there was Corps guys coming in there, and they would say, I'm going to vote for the girls, but don't tell my buddies. I'm tired of driving to Huntsville to get a date. And so, anyway, I felt like everything was going to pass. And in '64, when we began to open the shopping center, that was the beginning of a commercial area that served non-students, but permanent families in College Station. It tied together Eastgate and Southside. Dr. Redmond and Mrs. Redmond owned the property from the high school to Texas Avenue, which at that time was George Bush, and Jersey Street. And as it began to, they had leased a filling station on the corner of Amoco. And so they began to build that shopping center, and I spent time out there during the construction time. But when we first opened, there was, I got them written down here because there was changes after, but the original businesses was Brookshire Brothers Grocery Store, the first major grocery store in College Station meant to serve families. There was a Bond grocery store out south at Rock Prairie. If you knew Jimmy Bond, that's where he grew up. That was his parents. There was a Mays grocery store at University and Texas Avenue, which was a small store, but that was basically where their major stores were, and they were very small, kind of community stores. Then the shopping center was built in two sections, or three sections. There was the north section, the center section, and the south section. Brookshire Brothers was the anchor in the north section. And north of them, about a year later, Dr. Redmond put in a pharmacy. He brought Mr. Feaster out of Bryan to run the prescription stuff. And next to him, in the center section, was John Pruitt. John Pruitt put in a beauty shop, fabric shop, and a dress shop for women. I was next to him, and on the other side of me was Highlander Washateria. That was John Pruitt's brother-in-law that has Park Cleaners at South Side. It was also a pickup station for the clothes to go to Park Cleaners for dry cleaning. And then next to that, Mrs. McElroy put in McElroy Shoes. She only made it for about 2 years before she went out of business. There was a center section, didn't have anything in it for a good while, but later on, a guy opened up Mexican Imports. He didn't last very long. But next to that was Ben Franklin's. The Clarks from San Marcos put that in. The son operated it. And then next to that was Gibson's Discount Center. And next to that was Betty's Beehive Boutique, dress shop for ladies. Yeah, and then later on, around the corner, somebody put in a pool hall, but they didn't last very long. They moved it over to the North Gate. Those were the merchants. But as the shopping center was first opened, people that had never been to College Station before come over that little hill there where Holloman is, and they'd come in the shopping center and look around, and they said, boy, you come over that little hill and you're in Bryan before you know it. We say, no, you're in College Station and don't know it. The next drop off is Bryan. So John Pruitt and Ben Lyles and I and Clark and Reverend Anderson, who was a retired minister, we formed, and I think maybe Bill Fish was involved, we formed what we called the College Station Progress Association. Our goal was to give College Station an identity. We put up a sign on Texas Avenue, which was Highway 6 at the time, about across from where Target is. We put one up in where Bryan and College Station comes together. There's now a statue there of the sister cities. And then we put one up on the Snook Highway. It said, College Station, home of Texas A&M. And I believe the city's still using that motto. And because we thought that, well, when people come, they need, all of the billboards south of College Station talked about Del Marmo's, this motel, Hotard's. It all said Bryan, did not say College Station. The thing that really helped us even more was when the racetrack was put in, they said they were out of College Station, and that got national attention. And so slowly people began to understand College Station. But at Redmond Terrace, to me, that was a key portion, not only for the permanent families, but it also caused a lot of growth as people began to see the effects that it had, that you could actually do business in College Station. And so there was changes taking place. And I've written them down so I wouldn't forget them. But when Brookshire's contract, we all signed a 10-year lease, and some of them went on to 20-year leases. But when they closed out, there was a furniture store came in there, and they were there for a good while until I think about the time we closed the shopping center. And Pruitt's Beauty Shop, when they closed out, we had a beauty school came in there, and they were there for a period of while. Then Burdett and Sons put in their sports shop and all of that. And then Highlander Washateria, when they closed out, Jennifer put in the photo shop, her and her mama. And so that was there. And then there was a gift-a-rama put in that center section where I said that there was nobody for a while. And that's where you made things and put it in the oven and painted it and all that stuff. They called it gift-a-rama. And it was there. And then where Ben Franklin's was, when their lease expired, there was a guy put in Shoe City. Shoe City handled shoes. And he was there for a few years. And there was one night when a cold front come into A&M in Texas in College Station. I think it dropped the temperature to about 9 degrees. The roof shrunk. There was a I-beam that went from the back of the shopping center to the front. There was no support underneath of it. The I-beam was spot welded to the metal rods in the concrete wall. Well, when it shrunk, it pulled free and the roof caved in. It put us out of business for a little while they checked the shopping center, make sure that was the only place that had a problem. But then we were able to continue, and Hopgood and Allen, who designed the shopping center, they were two engineers at A&M, had a construction company, H&A Construction. They had to come and jack that roof back up, put I-beams under it, and fix the problem. And they did that. And then when Gibson Discount Center closed, Academy came in, and they filled that space. And Beehive Boutique, Betty's Beehive Boutique, some of you knew Carl Landis, Dr. Landis, his wife and daughter bought that, and they operated it until it was closed out. But as the shopping center began to come to a certain point, Dr. Redmond and his wife had bought a big ranch up somewhere, or farm up around Ennis, Texas. And when they retired, they moved up there. And so they have a daughter, Rosemary, who is a lawyer in, I think, Dallas or Fort Worth, but they were absentee owners. So anytime there was a problem, I was the guy that everybody would come to take care of it.
Yes, sir.
When the engineering office supply moved up and took care of Ben Franklin's space, Hopgood and Allen built an addition on it, a warehouse for the furniture stuff. But when they put the walls up where the gas lines went through, there was a space like this with a gas pipe here, and the mice started getting through into the center section. You remember that? Well, I went around and found out what the problem was in that space. So I bought some stainless steel and stuffed it in there so they couldn't, and then proceeded to set traps all over that center section until I caught all the mice and the rats. And but as time went on, they were not renewing the leases on the shopping center. And there's something going on. Dr. Redmond passed away. Mrs. Redmond let Rosemary handle all of it. And so we figured there was probably going to sell it. And if they're not renting the space or leasing the space, something was going to happen. But that's what happened. When it got to a certain point and all the lease expired, everybody moved. Academy built out on the bypass. Burdett and Sons bought land and bought a place there at Eastgate. Pruitt pulled his back into South Side. And Brown Shoe Store, actually Brown Shoe Store moved into where Dr. Redmond had that drugstore. And Brown Shoe Store was in downtown Bryan. And he closed that store and moved it out there. And it was there until finally he bought land across from the cemetery where Brown Shoe Store is now. He bought that series of buildings there that go back in there. And Jason's Deli's put in there. Now, the people, when Rosemary sold the shopping center, I understand that the person who started Jason's Deli is one of the key players in the group that bought it. He was a student at A&M in the early days of the shopping center, and he used to trade at the shopping center. But as a result of that, there was a lot of things happened in College Station because of the shopping center had an effect. Kind of like back in that day and time, we had a College Station United chest. Bryan had the United Way. Well, as businesses moved out here, like Brookshire's, the manager was from Bryan. A lot of the employees from Bryan. EOS, when they moved out here, Joel King was from Bryan. A lot of his employees was from Bryan. And I had been asked to handle raising money along Texas Avenue or Highway 6, whatever you want to call it back then. And as I was trying to get people to donate, a lot of them wanted their money to go to Bryan United Way, not to College Station United Chest. Well, I had gone on the board of the United Chest, and so as I became president one year, I told them about the problem I was having. People just was having conflicts, and I was suggesting that we have where we put on our donation cards, create a Brazos County United Way. And I guess it passed. I went off the board just prior to the finish of the fund, but immediately after the fundraising, we now have Brazos Valley United Way. We don't have United Chest. But when I got to be president, I wanted to have where you raise money, send out letters. Bryan had a part-time secretary. When Brookshire's moved, they sent a letter out welcoming to Bryan College Station. I think the corporation made their donations to Bryan United Way, even though they were in College Station. But their managing was, and so we wound up doing that, putting all of that, and so that came into being because of that. And there's my daughter, I think, is wanted to come and hear me today. I always tell her, when back in that day and time, we had sidewalks only at Northgate, only at Eastgate, and only at Southside. None in the residential area. And she went to College Hills. And when she would walk home, she'd come down Francis, and there was a bend there where you come across where Dr. Cooper lived. And there was a gentleman, loose term, lived on that bend, and he did not want the kids to walk on his grass. He would sit out there in his chair and make them walk in the street of Francis, which was at that time a pretty busy street. And I got concerned about it. I was on the school board at that time. O.C. Cooper was the president of the school board. And I went to him and I said, O.C., I'm worried about these kids walking away from elementary schools. And there's something we can do? Well, the board asked Taylor Riedel to get together with North Bardell, who was a city councilman, to see about putting sidewalks near the elementary schools. And that started the building of sidewalks in College Station. My daughter over there, I give her credit for starting that. But anyway, but that's basically the history of the shopping center. Out of that, like I say, Joel King had engineering and office supply. He used to be west of downtown Bryan. All of your major stores was in Bryan. Woolworths, Montgomery Ward's, Bell's, everything back in the 60s, 50s was in Bryan. But we wound up making things change. I think as a result of Redmond Terrace was very important. And it showed that there was room in College Station, the purchasing power was developing that would carry College Station way beyond what everybody dreamed. If you look at Southside, Eastgate, Northgate, you understand that basically they hadn't thought of much beyond the bedroom community. But I used to tell people the growth in the past is nothing compared to the future. I'm going to tell you today, the growth in the past is nothing compared to the future. We have the biggest university, I think, in Texas, with the growth area to grow to unlimited amounts. I remember when the Board of Regents would say, we're going to limit the growth. I said, you can't limit the growth of A&M. And they said, oh yeah, we can. I said, you do. You might lose a permanent university fund, and you can't afford that. Well, finally, A&M decided to let it grow. And I don't know what the count is now, what, 70,000? And it's going to be the biggest university west of the Mississippi. And not only that, we're the hub of the metropolitan area. Beaumont, Houston, San Antonio, Austin, Waco, Dallas, Fort Worth, Huntsville. Your kids can come to A&M and you can come see them on a weekend, or they can come home on the weekend. And people moving into Texas usually are very families that have potential college-age kids in the future. And I say the growth in the future is nothing compared, the growth in the past is nothing compared to the growth in the future. But anyway, that's some of my overview of Redmond Terrace. Was very key.
It is amazing, AC, how much knowledge and impact a guy can have standing behind a barber's chair for 45 years.
Well, you can get an education if you learn to ask questions and keep your mouth shut.
That's right. That's right. I want to save some time for questions for AC. I can't imagine what he didn't cover there, but any questions for, by the way, AC was he didn't talk about his service, but he served at Bryan Air Force Base also, right? You were Air Force. Yes, sir.
Do you have any idea or knowledge of how much Redmond Terrace cost when they bought the land?
No, Dr. Redmond and Mrs. Redmond, I don't know when they bought it, but they owned that and they leased the corner to the Amico station, and then they developed the residential area behind it before they built Redmond Terrace.
You mentioned to us that they signed the contract above the dirt floor.
Yeah, well, it was a stand-up wall shopping center. I think it was probably one of the first because we had people from England over here taking pictures of it. They poured the floor of the whole shopping center, then they made the forms and formed the walls, and then raised them up and poured beams between the panels with concrete walls and concrete, and that was the way they built that shopping center. So it was built in 3 sections: the north gate, the north end, the center, and the south.
And now they've got parking on the roof. That could have really gotten ugly.
Oh, that.
Here you go, Scott.
Thank you for that presentation, AC.
Yeah.
I got a quick question. It just
Yes.
kind of occurred to me. What did you charge for a haircut back in those days when you started out?
$1.25.
$1.25?
Yeah, I still got the $1.25 I took in. I opened up on Saturday, the 31st of August, because people that worked on the shopping center said they wanted to get a haircut when I first opened. And I had some key people that I had taken care of when I was at Redmond Terrace that lived in College Station, and they also wanted to. So I was the only one open in that Saturday of the 31st of August, and the rest of them started to open up after that. And we worked on a lot of the core staff. And like I said, I can remember the core saying, don't tell my buddies I'm going to vote for girls. I'm tired of going to Huntsville. Yeah. But we also worked on a lot of seniors and a lot of athletics. Randy Matson, which most of you know, I started cutting his hair when he was a freshman. Ted Nelson, when I got here, was a sophomore. And seeing those two together was like seeing Mutt and Jeff. So.
I think I did some math, if you don't mind. Have you reached the 9-0 yet, or are you right about
Well,
that?
I'm close enough. You know how you have problems going in the other room and forgetting what you came for? When you get my age, that's not a problem. You forget before you get there.
That's right. That's right. Any other questions for AC? What a presentation by the Carpenters and AC.